You can baby your car all you want, but if the engine's burning oil like it's going out of style, you're never making it to 200,000 miles. And yeah, there are notorious engines that are hell-bent on reducing your mileage. Hello everyone, this is Scott from CarLandTV. It's time to hop in the front seat because today, we're looking at the worst engines that quietly ruin your ownership experience, one disappearing quart at a time. Before I start, I would really appreciate it if you would push those buttons below, the subscribe button, the notification bell, all of them. This is not necessary, but those little clicks help a brother out. Plus, it pushes me to give you more valuable car-related content on your screen. Now, buckle up and let's get back to the video. 1. Toyota 2. ASFE. I've seen a lot of engines hold up through 200,000 miles and beyond, but the Toyota 2 ASFE, that's not one I'd bet on. It was used in a ton of models between 2007 and 2011, especially in the Camry, RAV4, and Scion TC. You'd think that era of Toyota was all bulletproof drivetrains and minimal drama, but this engine had a major flaw that too many owners didn't catch until it was too late. The problem was baked into the design: low-tension piston rings paired with poor oil control. Over time, those rings allow oil to slip into the combustion chamber and burn off, especially as the engine ages. What made it worse is that the oil light on most of these cars wouldn't turn on until you were already dangerously low. People would go a few thousand miles between changes, thinking everything was fine, and suddenly they're spinning a bearing or seizing up on the freeway. Toyota eventually issued the TSB 009411 Technical Service Bulletin and extended the warranty for certain VIN ranges. But not everyone qualified, and plenty of owners were stuck with a $4,000 engine rebuild out of pocket. I've personally known shops that stocked used 2AZs just for this reason. They were in and out of engines like tires. What's wild is that this engine wasn't turbocharged or high-strung. It was supposed to be simple and dependable. But if you're shopping for an older Camry or RAV4, check the oil burn history. If that dipstick comes out dry, you've got a problem waiting to happen. 2. Subaru, FB25, and FB20. You talk to enough Subaru owners, and you start to hear the same phrase: it just started using oil out of nowhere. That's especially true with the FB series engines, namely the 2.5-liter FB25 and the smaller 2-liter FB20, which were found in 2011 to 2015 Foresters, Outbacks, Imprezas, and Crosstreks. Subaru was going through a transition back then, chasing better fuel economy, and they dialed in low-friction everything: piston rings, synthetic 0-watt 20 oil, even tighter tolerances. Sounds great on paper. In practice, though, it turned into a maintenance headache. The issue was excessive oil consumption due to those low-tension rings failing to maintain a solid seal. Some owners were topping off a quart every 800 to 1,000 miles. And here's the part that catches people off guard. The light on the dash doesn't come on until you're way low, sometimes after engine damage has already started. I've seen Crosstreks come in barely running, owners swearing they'd followed every service interval. Subaru didn't ignore it completely. They got hit with a class-action lawsuit, and in 2016, they settled, covering certain VINs for extended repairs and engine replacements. But again, that didn't include everyone, and plenty of people still drive around with these oil-hungry motors thinking that's just how Subarus are. Don't get me wrong, Subarus have their charm, especially in snowy states. But if you're eyeing a used one from that window, especially a 2013 to 2014 Forester or Impreza, check the oil service logs. If it's not been monitored closely, chances are that flat 4 is running thin. Now, let me show you an awful turbo engine found in specific models of Hondas. 3. Honda 1.5T Turbo. Honda's 1.5-liter turbocharged engine showed up with big promises: more torque, better mileage, and modern engineering packed into a downsized motor. It's the one you'll find in a ton of Civics, CR-Vs, and even base Accords from 2016 to around 2021. But once these cars started aging out of warranty, the pattern got harder to ignore. It wasn't just oil consumption, it was oil dilution. That's when raw gasoline starts mixing into the oil, thinning it out and causing wear over time. This wasn't some random one-off defect. The design of the direct-injected 1.5-ton made it easy for fuel to sneak past the piston rings, especially in colder climates or short-trip driving. In places like Minnesota or upstate New York, you had people checking their dipstick and finding it smelled like gas. Honda tried to fix it with software updates that changed engine warm-up behavior, and it helped a bit, but the damage for many was already done. What made things worse was the subtlety. Owners weren't seeing smoke or big leaks. They were just noticing rough idles, early misfires, and in some cases, serious engine wear by 60,000 miles. A handful of CRV owners even ended up needing complete engine replacements. And because fuel dilution doesn't always show up in basic service checks, it was easy to miss. I know people who swore by Honda for decades, but this engine shook their trust. If you're looking at a used CRV or Civic from that window, ask if the update was done, and still check that oil for fuel smell. Don't take it lightly. This time, let's raid the skeletons of GM's closet. 4. GM 2.4-liter Ecotec. I've seen more than a few GM crossovers towed into shops with locked-up engines, and 9 times out of 10, they had the 2.4-liter Ecotec under the hood. This engine was everywhere from 2010 to 2017. Chevy Equinox, GMC Terrain, Buick Verano, Malibu, you name it. On paper, it looked fine. But once owners started putting miles on them, the oil consumption got out of hand fast, sometimes before 80,000 miles. The root of the issue was the piston ring design. GM prioritized efficiency and emissions, so they used low-tension rings and added direct injection. But they underestimated how quickly those rings would lose their ability to scrape oil clean off the cylinder walls. It wasn't uncommon for these engines to burn a quart every 800 to 1,200 miles. Some drivers wouldn't even know until the engine started knocking or seized entirely. What makes this engine especially frustrating is how widespread it was and how long it took for GM to really respond. Technical service bulletins were issued, but there was no formal recall. A class action lawsuit eventually forced GM to settle in 2020, offering reimbursement to some owners for repairs. Still, thousands were left footing the bill for full engine rebuilds or replacements. If you're thinking about buying a used Equinox or Malibu from this era, be careful. Ask for oil change records, check for low oil history, and walk away if the seller says, "Yeah, it burns a little oil, it's normal." Because with this engine, that so-called little can turn into a big headache. Let's get into a premium engine that doesn't feel premium at all. 5. BMW N 63 volts 8. If you're looking at a used BMW 550i or 750i and wondering why the price seems too good to be true, there's a reason. The twin-turbocharged 4.4-liter N63 V8, found in a wide range of 2009 to 2014 BMWs, and even beyond that with updates, is infamous in enthusiast and mechanic circles for burning oil like it's an optional fuel. I've known guys who topped off every 2 gas fill-ups, and that wasn't even considered out of spec by BMW. This engine came with all the complexity you'd expect: twin turbos, direct injection, hot V layout. It made big power, but it also ran hot, and that heat broke down seals and accelerated wear on the piston rings. The result? Constant oil loss, fouled plugs, misfires, and in many cases, premature valve guide failure. BMW acknowledged the problem in their own way. They didn't recall the engine, but they did launch what they called a customer care package. That included things like turbo inspections, valve seal replacements, and, most telling of all, free oil top-offs at the dealership. We're not talking about 2 zero-year-old beaters here. These were $80,000 cars eating a quart of oil every 700 to 1,000 miles. And once out of warranty, the cost to keep them running right stacks up fast. Full engine rebuilds weren't rare, and timing components wore out early from oil starvation. If you're chasing German luxury on a budget, steer clear of any early N63-powered BMW without a full engine history. It might be fast, but it'll bleed you dry in oil and labor by 100,000 miles. And lastly, 6. Mazda 2.5-liter Skyactiv G. Mazda doesn't usually come up in conversations about oil consumption, which is exactly why this one catches people off guard. The naturally aspirated 2.5-liter Skyactiv G engine, found in models like the 2014 to 2018 Mazda 3, Mazda 6, and CX-5, was meant to be the heart of Mazda's efficiency push: high compression, direct injection, low-friction internals, all in the name of fuel economy. And for the most part, it delivered. But once these engines crossed 60,000 miles, some started showing early signs of oil burn that Mazda never made much noise about. The issue isn't on the level of Toyota's 2AZ or GM's Ecotec, but it's been consistent enough to raise eyebrows. Oil loss often starts small, a half quart between changes, then slowly creeps up. Some owners have reported 1 quart every 1,000 miles by the 90,000 mark. Most of it traces back to piston ring wear, aggravated by the engine's high operating temperatures and light oil viscosity. No class action suits were filed, no extended warranty, just a quiet trail of service reports, forum threads, and top-offs. What makes this tricky is Mazda's reputation for being enthusiast-friendly and detail-focused. A lot of buyers trust that badge, but in this case, It's worth keeping a close eye on the dipstick. If you own one of these and start seeing the oil light between changes, don't assume it's a one-off. They're great to drive, no question. But if your goal is a low-maintenance runner past 200,000, you'll want to stay on top of this engine's oil behavior early and often. Here's the part no one really explains when you're shopping for a car. Manufacturers often say it's normal for an engine to burn up to a quart of oil every 1,000 miles. That's printed in a lot of owners' manuals. But let me be straight with you. If your car is doing that under 100,000 miles, something's off. That kind of oil use shouldn't be normal, and you shouldn't accept it just because the service advisor shrugs. The reality is that some engines are built with tight emissions goals, or lightweight internals that wear faster than others. Low-tension piston rings, high compression ratios, and direct injection all play a role. And the automakers know this. They just set a tolerance wide enough to avoid footing the bill under warranty. If you're trying to avoid one of these engines or want to monitor the one you've got, here's what matters. Check your oil level every 1,000 miles. Don't wait for the light. If you're losing more than half a quart between changes, track it. Keep receipts. If it's a known problem engine, document everything. You'll thank yourself when you're trying to get repairs covered, or when you're deciding whether to walk away from a used car deal.